I didn't understand that day when we took Jesus. And Simeon and Anna, they came and they told me that one day the words that you were saying were going to pierce my heart. I didn't understand fully what they meant. God, why would you do this to our son? I know it's a plan, and he's told me there is a purpose. God, I understand these things, but I don't fully know why I had to go through this. I don't. Do you know what they did to him? They beat him. They called him names. They spit on my son. When they took him through the city, and he was so weak, and he was bleeding, and they had placed a crown of thorns on his head to mock him. Oh God, why did he have to go through that? Oh God, he couldn't even carry his cross on his own. And then he took the nails. I can still hear it. God, help me understand. Help me understand his last words. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. My heart, I don't understand. Help my heart. Help me, God. When I was sick, when I was lost, I remember his face. I remember his face when he looked at me. And he commanded the darkness out of me. Since that day, he helped so many people. He did so many amazing things that no ordinary man could have done. He had a power that couldn't have been anything but something from God. He talked so many times about his Father in heaven, and he said, I know the Father, and the Father and I are one. And why did it end like that? It's not supposed to happen that way. I loved him. And I thought that others did too. I thought that our people, the ones who were praising him and exalting him and shouting, Hosanna, I thought that they might love him like I did. But no, they turned around and they changed their minds, and instead of shouting Hosanna, they were shouting, crucify him. Crucify this man who's done nothing. I watched as he hung. And I watched as they crucified my Lord. All the time that I was with him, I never saw him do anything. I never heard him
say anything that was reminiscent of sin or unrighteousness. And yet they blamed him and they killed him like he was a murderer. I loved him. My rabbi, Jesus.
It is finished. Those are ringing in my ears right now. Yes, I've made rather merry today. It has been a good day. Oh, yes. That Judas Iscariot, he was cheap. Bag of silver. We got what we wanted. Turned over Jesus in a moment. The rest of the fella brought him before the Sanhedrin. Blasphemy, they said. He's guilty of blasphemy. We should take him, we should execute him. Then they got a Pilate. I tell you, Pilate, he's a weak man. Pilate talks to Jesus. He asks him a few questions. Can't make up his mind about the whole thing, so he looks for this loophole, doesn't he? Stands before the people. It's the Passover. Passover means we can free one of these guys. Who do you want to free? And they shouted, Barabbas! Free Barabbas! So this pillager and murderer was freed, and this troublemaker, this thorn in my side, the man who's made both my home and my work a pain, is now going to be crucified. And Pilate, when that happened, couldn't stand making a decision still, and so he washed his hands of the whole thing. And at that point, he was turned over to me. And I was going to make this work. I was going to do all that I could. So we scourged him. We beat him. I ordered my men to whip this man like they'd never whipped a man in their lives. There were those whips with the bones and the glass in them, just ripping through his flesh. Keep going, I said, keep going. Until his back was almost unrecognizable, and they looked at me. I said, and more. And so they kept thrashing the man. And then when I could see nothing but blood, I said, turn him over and do it again. And they did. He barely was recognizable as even a man once we'd finished with him, once I'd finished with him. And then we made him carry that cross, and he couldn't even carry it by himself. He had to get some guy to carry it for him. And they got to Golgotha, the place we were going to put that cross up. And I said, I want to drive those nails through his hands. And it was my hand that thrust them through his arms and through his legs. And then we raised him up on that cross and we laughed at him. That stupid crown on his head. That plaque on the back, King of the Jews, they said. Yeah, some king, there he was, hanging on that cross. He was a pathetic sight, and we all came and laughed. I even made some money on his clothes. Oddest thing happened when I got home. I knew my wife, my daughter weren't going to be pleased at what had gone on. Hey, it's what I do. It's part of the job. So I told him, he's dead. He's gone. We crucified him. And I expected Drusilla to come across that room angry at me. She's done that many a time. But she didn't. In fact, she kind of collapsed on the floor just weeping and crying. It actually bothered me. It really did. That wasn't what I expected at all from Drusilla. And Julie, I'm looking at my daughter, lying on that bed that she's laying for day after day, year after year, all of her life, just weeping and crying. And wanting to console her mom, and suddenly the most remarkable thing happened. As Julia moved herself around that bed, she stood for the first time in her life. She stood. And she walked over to her mother, and there the two of them wept. And I'm looking at this scene And suddenly I remembered the words that man Iscariot had brought to me. Words from Jesus that said, your deepest need will be met. What have I done? What have I done? Have I actually taken the Son of God? And have I taken him and beaten him and crucified him? Is that what I've done? Have I taken God and killed him? And I start to wonder my deepest need. To see my daughter walk, surely that was my deepest need. But now in that moment, I realized perhaps my deepest need is that Jesus would actually be alive. Because the flood of regret that came over me for what I had done to him was too much for me to bear. My deepest need, that Jesus be alive. I put him on that cross. I put him on that altar. I, this sinner, destroyed the Son of God.